Yours.
All right, we'll call the meeting of the Facilities and Transportation Committee to order at 6 p.m. Any additions or changes to the agenda? All right, anyone here for public comments? Let's give it a minute. Make sure that no one. Review approval of meeting minutes. What we need to do is fill in some holes for the our meeting on March 13th. And it has to do with the motions and seconds for the nomination of chair and vice chair. I don't really remember how that worked out. I think I nominated myself.
Yep, I got them. If you want them.
Cool.
So for chair, you made the first and made the second. And vice chair, Andy McMichael made the first and Mary Jane did the second.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think that was it, that we didn't have any other action items for anything. For adjournment, you wouldn't happen to have the adjournment, would you?
I'm not, I'm sorry. Should have wrote that down. I do not have.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's a lot better than what we had before. Thank you. And then that will be ready for our next meeting, along with the minutes for this meeting. New business is the stormwater runoff mitigation presentation.
So, Andres, if you're available, if you could, mind taking the lead on this?
Sure. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Jamie, do you have the plan? Does the board have the plans? Or can I share my screen?
Yeah, if you could share your screen.
Okay. Let's start with Berrytown. And while this is loading up, I'm just going to give everybody, really start from the top in terms of our involvement and like what's driving this project. So my name's Andres Teresa with Watershed Consulting. We're a stormwater consultant here in Burlington. Originally, this project was actually a volunteer project, and we were working on behalf of Friends of the Winooski River at the time, local nonprofit group, and working with the school. They got grant funding to design the project that you're looking at here just as a voluntary stormwater retrofit project. And that was back several years ago now. And so, you know, the project obviously was never constructed, but now we're in a situation where there's a regulatory requirement for this project to occur. And that regulatory requirement is this so-called 3-acre rule. So this is affecting not only this site, but I think there's 700 other sites on the list where the state is designating larger impervious surfaces in the state to upgrade their stormwater systems, where the site does not have a current stormwater system, current being 2017 is the current stormwater system requirements. And so there's a number of schools that are on that list. And so the state is really putting the schools at the top of the list in terms of trying to assist with funding to meet this new regulatory requirement. So what the state has done is they've introduced this, what's called the Green Schools program. And so they hired a consultant out of Chicago to manage this whole program on behalf of the state. And then we subsequently bid on a request for proposal to basically do the design work necessary to meet this requirement. So that was, we bid on this school, Berry City, which I'm going to discuss next, was also part of that. And then we have a number of other ones, like 10 other ones, where we're currently in process with the design. So the Green Schools requirement is a it's really the design part of it is really a two-phase process. First phase is preparing and submitting what's called an initial notice of intent. So that's really just telling the state that, look, we plan to comply and pay a fee, and the state basically issues a permit, which is good for 18 months. So in the case of the Berry City, that's currently been done. Also been done in terms of this site right here, Berry Town. So that's phase one. Phase two is actually coming back to the state with final design plans and permit application. So that's really the process for this site. That's really where we are at right now. So we're getting ready to submit a final application to the state. So what happens after that's submitted is the state reviews it, and then we'll issue a permit. And essentially the permit will require that this project be constructed within 5 years of the issuance of the permit. So, you know, if we were to submit the permit for this site, say in 3 months, the state is going to take probably another 3 months to review it. So then you're going to have basically 5.5 years to actually construct the project. So as I was saying, my time is funded through the Green Schools program. So the district isn't paying for my time right now. The second component of the Green Schools program is actually implementation funding. And the state is actually working on that right now. And the latest news that we had just last week, actually, from our project manager, is that he wants a list of all the schools where we're going to be more or less complete by June or July of this year. And the reason being is that the state is going to prioritize the implementation funding for schools that are ready to go with their permits this summer. So, you know, that kind of puts I would say an urgency if you're interested in trying to get implementation funding too for the project. We should kind of carry on and try to have permits submitted to the state for this site as soon as we can. And we're really in a position where, you know, if the group wants us to go ahead, we're really ready to submit this permit probably within a couple of weeks to a month. So I think you're going to be in good shape. When I get to Berry City, we'll discuss. That one is a little ahead of the schedule. The permit application has already been submitted to the state. So I think for that, you're also in a really good position to try to secure some implementation funds for that site. So are there any questions about the program before I just review the design, the technical design?
I think you're good to go.
Okay.
Do we have a cost?
Not yet.
He's got something.
I do have the cost. I'll present the technical design and then I'll go to the cost. So for Berrytown, we have, I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what the design is. Basically there's, starting from the top, there's some regrading of an existing swale, which comes down into what's called a bioretention basin. So this bioretention basin right here it's not a pond. It's not designed to permanently hold water. It's designed as a garden, filter garden kind of thing. So it will have some ponding water, a couple feet of ponding water during storms. And then it's designed to drain down. There's a subsurface drain underneath. So all the water basically from the parking lot comes into this swale. It also comes into a pipe right here. Comes into what's called a forebay, and then into this bioretention garden, and then off to the street. So the nice thing about this design is, number one, it really has no impact to the parking lot. In terms of, you know, safety issues, it's not, like I was saying, there isn't designed to be permanent standing water. So the water would just be in there after a storm event, you know, after a heavy storm event, and then it would be designed to drain down. We did just finish an installation. We designed and then it was installed last year at Berlin Elementary, a similar type system, which is out in front of the loop at that school, if anybody was interested. The one over there is much bigger than this one. So this is kind of a smaller version of of what's over there. So I think so far that's been fairly successful. So let me just see if there's anything else I can tell you about this. We do have a split rail fence, 3-rail wood fence with 4x4-inch galvanized wire, woven wire backer around the system. So, you know, it wouldn't be a chain link. It would be just designed. It should be designed to look relatively attractive. And yeah. Is there a question? Okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to think of any other elements. The planting plan. We specify a planting plan. The planting plan, I think, is somewhat, you know, it's somewhat flexible in terms of what you would want to see in there, just from an aesthetic standpoint. I mean, what we would recommend is just like a native wetland wildflower type mix. I think that's what we have specified. So just be designed, you know, to kind of bloom out in the year and just kind of be like a naturalized kind of a thing. Nothing super fancy. You know, the maintenance on this thing is really just like a normal landscaping type maintenance activity. You would, in the spring and in the fall, somebody would want to go out and remove things like sticks and debris and trash and kind of prune back the vegetation and make sure that there isn't any erosion or anything going on. So it's pretty standard maintenance, you know, and that would be within the bioretention area and then also within the swale coming down through here. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, please.
What is the situation when you have a 100 years flood event or 500 years flooding event? Does that water just fill in and outflow automatically?
No, so the way, you know, this system is designed basically to safely pass, you know, a really large event like that. And what it would have is it would have a catch basin that would be kind of raised up, but within the basin itself. And that's a pretty large, it's 48-inch, you know, catch basin. It would be embedded into the side. And so if the water were to get up, you know, basically 478 is the bottom. The water, if it's going to get up to 480.5, so that's 2.5 feet off the bottom, it's going to go into that grate. And then if that grate were ever to get overwhelmed, which would really be a massive type storm, then basically it goes over a spillway, like basically just like a little stone spillway here at the end, which is a little bit higher. So there's a way for the water to kind of get out. And if it goes over the spillway, it ends up, sorry, I'm going to switch to the other view here. It ends up heading down to Websterville Road, and there's a catch basin right at the entrance here, and then it would just go across the road into the big gully over here on this side.
So my concern is that if you get a long-term event like an Irene,
Yep.
which, you know, dumps 19 inches of water over a specific period of time, there's no system in the world that will hold back that quantity of water, let alone filtrate it. This will not mess up the filtration aspect of the system itself. It's really geared for an overflow.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we, you know, as designers, we're basically designing the standard for that extreme storm is a 100-year storm, which is really about almost 6 inches of rain in 24 hours. So you're right that, I mean, you can't design for every event, right? So do our best as designers to kind of design with enough capacity and contingency freeboard in there so that you're not going to be, you know, causing an issue when you have those really large storms. But I mean, the reality is that there will be certainly be overflow if you were to get 19 inches of rain. I mean, you know, this isn't going to be the first thing that's going to be flooded. You're going to have flooding absolutely everywhere anyway. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's our standard. That's what the state requires when we're designing these things. And, you know, there isn't, you know, I mean, it's a relatively low hazard kind of a structure because like it's only 2.5 feet deep. I mean, these, you know, basins which have embankments of 10 or 12 feet is a much more hazardous type structure in terms of, if it were to breach basically in a storm like that.
But that type of a storm event would not damage the system. It would kind of bypass it, am I correct?
It would be designed to bypass it. I mean, that's the whole idea with this overflow, the stone overflow. I mean, that's a 10-foot wide overflow. So there's a lot of water that can pass through there without damaging. It's designed to flow, to convey those storms through the system. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
A couple of questions. Is the retention pond fenced?
So our current plan is showing a 4-foot high 3-rail wood fence. The fencing is really discretionary in terms of, basically it's shown we have a 16-foot wide dual swing access gate right here. So this would be to come in for maintenance. I don't think the state, in terms of the state permit review, is going to weigh in on that. So I think that's more so kind of a call by the district, whether, what type of fence is there and whether you want the fence to surround it. But we are showing the fence.
Okay.
With
Yeah, being a rec area and there's a lot of weekend traffic with kids, that probably needs to be a chain link fence around that thing, I would think. Would make more sense. Is that all district property where that will go?
Yeah.
It's tucked between the town right away and the property next door. And then lastly, is that for the whole entire property? It's kind of on one side of the property. Does that handle all the runoff, stormwater runoff for the entire property?
It does. That's a good question, because the standards that are in place with the state, they don't require that we collect 100% of the site. We can meet the standards by, rule of thumb is about collecting half of the site. So this is just designed to manage, the front parking lot. And I believe the roof drains to kind of drain in here, but yeah, it's just draining the front part of it. So this is all that's needed for, all that should be needed to meet the compliance for the whole site.
With your ear kind of to the rail, do you think there is any chance in the future, short term or long term, of an expansion of these rules where they would say, we want more of that into the system? And then would this system be designed in such a way, if that became a reality down the road, we wouldn't have to modify this, just continue to add on? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. I mean, I think that it's always a possibility that the state can change the rules. But what we've been told is that, if the state has chosen this 3 acres as a threshold to kind of pick on all the sites which are 3 acres or more, if that doesn't end up meeting their needs in terms of the benefits, what they're going to do is they're going to go down to 2 acres or 1 acre. It's not that they're going to take the 3 acres and say you need to do more, but they're actually going to collect more sites.
More smaller
It's
sites.
the most likely thing that's going to happen.
And the big question is cost.
Yeah, so the costs I just want to make sure you guys understand this is preliminary. We're throwing together the numbers here tonight. I mean, I think it's a good planning level estimate, but there's definitely still some things in here which need to be refined. But we're coming up with about $215,000 when we total it all up. It previously, this was priced at, I want to say $130,000, and that was probably 5 years ago now. We threw a pretty large contingency in here. There's a 40% contingency in here, so $56,000 worth of contingency. And the reason being is just with the material pricing the way it's been, it seems like that's what we're seeing. Some of the bids recently coming in, it seems like that's pretty well on target. So there you go. That's what we got. So what we would do if we go ahead with this plan, we would submit the permit application, and then we would actually also submit the cost estimate to our contact at Greenprint, and we would inform him that the district wants to be in the queue for the implementation funding, and that he would basically use this to, put his numbers in to the state for the queue. I think I want to say they have 20 million maybe in implementation funds. So there's a good amount of money that they have lined up for this. And I think it's going to be first come, first serve. So that's why they want schools that are kind of ready to go with permits and that are willing to kind of do the work a little bit ahead of schedule. They want to fund those first. And I
So
can say this.
So the $215,000, that's for the actual field and engineering combined?
Right. Well, that's the construction engineering. So all the construction phase engineering, and then the actual construction. So our design cost is not in here because that's all paid for already.
This is the very town, right?
That's very town, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It looked like there was.
So so you said that Berry City already has their permits?
Yeah. So if we talk about Berry City for a minute, if you'd like to go there, I can just describe what the situation is at Berry City. So Berry City, the timelines for all these schools are not the same. They're staggered a little bit. And when we were hired for Berry City, that first, what I call the initial notice of intent, had already been submitted to the state. So that had already started the 18-month clock in terms of when we actually had to submit full design plans to the state. So the deadline that we had to meet to submit the full design plans was actually at the end of last year. So we met that deadline. We submitted a full package to the state with the design that I'm going to present to you. And so that right now is under technical review with the state. So we haven't heard anything about it yet, but they're technically reviewing it. So this one is ahead of schedule. So assuming, we work through some state comments and stuff, you could have the final permit on this one in a month or two. So I can kind of give you the overview on this one. So this one, originally, when we got involved in this site, again, this was a number of years ago when we did a overall stormwater master plan for the city of Berry. We identified this site as a priority for stormwater improvement. We came up with a design that actually managed stormwater from the rec facility down here and the school, because the school drainage ends up coming through the property down here. So we had an underground system sized down here, which would manage both the school and the rec facility. We met with the city. So after that project was over, last year when we were hired for this current job, because the school, like Berry Town, became regulatory and this program came about, we got hired to do it. We met with Bill, and the city was not in favor of having a combined system. And they asked us to go and look at stormwater improvements on the campus itself and not have, so we had to abandon the project that we originally partially designed down here, and we had to look up at the school for the system. So we ended up doing that, and I can just zoom in. I can show you what we came up with. There's an underground chamber system right here under the parking lot. And the underground chamber system, I know there's a lot going on here, but basically it's designed by way of some new piping to intercept a lot of the storm lines, which are draining off down the hill, picking those up and bringing those into this underground vault system. And then the underground vault system, if it were to overflow, just flows back into an existing stormwater line, which comes down the hill. So let me see if I have a zoom in one. I know it's a little hard to see. So some of the challenges with this site, as you probably know, there's a construction demolition dump to the north of the school. So we could not utilize that area. So that was a no-go. Other than that, there's really the site is really limited. There's no place to do anything that's going to be an inexpensive surface stormwater system. The slopes are really steep. I'd be taking part of your parking lot away if we were to do it. So there's really no option other than going underground and doing this underground system. So, we've done a lot of these systems and they actually work pretty well. And the thing that I was talking to Jamie about is the way to do this would be to do it in conjunction with paving. Any paving needs anyway, and I know you have paving needs on the site. So basically you time it so that, you dig this, you excavate this system, you do the system, and then you do a new do new pavement over the surface. That's the most cost efficient way to do it. So this one is quite a bit more. This came in at, with $120,000 worth of contingency, $471,000. So that's, the cost of the Storm Tech. It's a Storm Tech is the type of stormwater system, the chambers, and then the contingency, the construction engineering. So that's the cost for that. So
That number again, Andres?
471,000.
So when you talk about the construction dump, and you're talking about digging into that, correct?
Yeah, or even I think we had a setback from where we had some discussions with the state project manager about it, and I believe we couldn't even be within, this area, although there's a water line there anyway. But anywhere off the edge of the parking lot, I don't think was a no-go for any stormwater over there.
So you couldn't place the vaults on top of the site and then fill it in and extend the parking lot?
No,
Okay.
they wouldn't want us. They didn't want us over here at all.
Okay.
What would be different about the design if the city was willing to do it jointly with us with the rec area? What would be different about the design then?
So it was the identical kind of a system that we had proposed down here. It was a Storm Tech chamber system under the parking lot down at the rec field. I guess it's right here, the pool. Sorry, not the rec field, the pool. So identical kind of system. It was larger because it also collected, part of the road. So it was collecting more water. And the concept at the time was that the city would maintain it and maybe cost share on it because it was also benefiting them and that it was going to be located on their land.
Was there an indication why they didn't want to do it? Do you recall?
I think I don't remember exactly. I believe it was just because the city was not obligated under any regulatory reason to do it. And so they just didn't want to be involved in something that they wouldn't otherwise have to do.
Yeah, it would just be a bigger footprint and a little more work involved to take care of it, correct?
It would be, right.
Yep.
That's correct.
So that cost of 471,000, that's without the paving being redone.
That includes the paving.
That does include the paving.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Andre, can you explain a little bit more further up on the property where, storm drainage takes place, extra culverts to lead to that collection point?
Yeah, sure. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see where they are. It might be hard to see on the screen. Bear with me for a sec. So we have, it's a pretty complicated site. So at the loop on the southern end, there's a storm line that goes to the east down the hill. So you see there's some bolded stormwater lines right here. So this is new. These are new lines. So this would be intercepted right here. So any of the drainage, which is currently going down the hill, would go via a new 15-inch pipe over and feeding into the stormwater system here. So there would be one line that would be feeding here. The other line would be feeding from over here. This is where I believe there's a catch basin out in the front of the building right here. and we would be picking up and coming across. So there would be some trenching, which would be done here, and then basically new piping coming in from the south as well, and it would tie together and then come into the system, and then the system would overflow back into that stormwater line, which is right here, an existing stormwater line. So this would be, yeah, this would be excavated. Once it's excavated, it would be paved over. The only thing you would see is a couple manholes, the manhole on the inlet side and the outlet side. So the maintenance would be basically popping that manhole and then getting a Vector truck to clean out what's called the isolator row. This is on the right side, the one that's shaded. This row is wrapped in fabric. So any of the sediment, like the winter sand and stuff, would accumulate in that row, and then it would just be vacked out by way of this manhole right here. So there'd be really no impact. Once this thing is installed, there'd be no impact to the parking lot at all.
And does this include the regular pavement, not the porous asphalt for stormwater management? Just wanted.
That's right.
Okay,
Conventional, regular pavement, right?
perfect.
Yeah.
And when you talk about pavement, you're talking about pavement over the system itself, or are we talking about the entire parking lot?
Well, at a minimum, the pavement, I guess I should say, like, in order to calculate the costs, we basically assume the square footage right on top of the system, and then all, the trenching that would need to be done for the piping. Ideally, if there's a need to repave the whole parking lot, then that would be even better. But I didn't factor in, my cost doesn't include repaving the whole parking lot. It's just basically where the footprint of the system would be, plus the piping coming in.
So it's just the footprint.
Yeah.
I just want to be clear so nobody misunderstood that.
Yep.
And that avoids all utilities, like the electrical, the gas. I don't know where the generator is. Where's the generator in relation to it?
So, get my bearing here. Over in this area here.
Yeah, we did our best, to research all of the utilities. I think we worked with Jamie and I think Bill. All the utilities that we know about are on this plan. There's water, there's sewer. There are a couple crossings. So, we have to cross the sewer line, we have to cross a water line. So definitely navigating around the utilities. But as far as we understand, this area where we have proposed is not within any existing utilities. I know there's there's power for the lights, but this area doesn't show any utility conflicts here.
Jamie, when was the last time that parking lot was paved? The whole parking lot?
When the school was built, 95. That's original parking lot. Yeah, so it's due.
30 some odd years old.
Any other questions?
I just want to come down back to the GPH, the number of gallons per hour that the system can handle.
I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I mean, we've designed this based on modeling, stormwater modeling. So we've modeled the range of storms all the way from the smallest storms, like an inch, all the way up to the 6-inch event. The target for the state standards that we're trying to meet is basically designing a system which is going to manage 1 inch of rainfall within 24 hours. That's the treatment standard. That doesn't mean that the system will totally fail if there's a larger storm. The system is designed basically in a real large event. The chambers are going to be full, and the water would just continue kind of through the storm network, kind of as it does now. So it's not, it shouldn't be doing anything to surface or flood the surface or anything like that. It's essentially just going to be flowing through the pipes as it does once the system's filled.
All right, thank you.
Andres, I know those are budget numbers, but could you share those with me through email? at some
Sure.
point?
Yep.
Size.
215. 215,000. Oh, so no, these folks aren't, they haven't been hired to do
They
the
don't
high
do
school
high
one.
So the high
That's
school
a different
guy,
contractor.
Yeah, Du Bois and King did the high school one.
Correct.
So, so Berry City's permitted, it's, the application's in, it's under review. So how far away is Berry Town from that point?
We're really close. We're kind of anxious to get that packaged up and sent off so that you can get in that funding queue. So, I mean, we could probably have that off within 2 or 3 weeks.
And this funding from the state is, they would fund it, or would we have an obligation to pay back? Or do you have any sense of how that works, or that's probably beyond your scope at this point?
So it's the details of that program are just like the program hasn't been released yet. So I don't know all the details. I believe there was some, I want to say it was, don't hold me to it, but I thought it was like 10% or something like that. But there may, I don't believe it's a very sizable amount. I just know, and I will know more soon because I just, like I was saying, my project manager for this, he's just asking me to get a list of all the schools that are going to be ready to go by the summer. And so I think, I'm going to know more within a month or two on the details of that program. I can let Jamie know.
What's
As soon as I hear
the process? What's the approval process for submitting for a permit? I'm just curious.
So we submit the whole package, and inevitably the state will have comments. They always have comments, and it's really just technical stuff. Submit this or that, whatever. We usually go back and forth a few times, and then, and then basically at that point they're going to be, they'll be ready to issue a permit. I don't see any red flags at all. So.
Sorry, I should rephrase. I meant, is somebody from the board need to approve to submit the permit, or do they just submit the permit? Is more what I meant. What is the internal approval process to submit for a permit?
Yeah, so I'll need a signature on the notice of intent. So I worked with Jamie last time to get that, and so as long as I guess you're telling me that you're comfortable, the board's comfortable with us moving ahead, we'll just get that in motion. And there'll be an application fee. I don't have that handy right now, but that will need to be paid. And then we basically take it from there. I mean, I think in terms of our approvals, for our contracted approvals, we have the green light to go ahead with this. So I think we just need to know, let's go for it.
Thanks.
The previous plans you had at Barrytown, is that the same plan or similar to the plan that we had 5 years ago looked at? Is that the same one?
It is. Yeah, it's very similar. Yep.
So it's still the same. Okay.
Yep.
So Jamie, do we need anything, or do we need to do anything, or is he?
No, they're running
So
with
they're
it.
going, yeah,
Yeah,
good.
they're doing all the heavy lifting for us.
Yeah, good.
And we're counting grants covering both of these projects?
So what I've heard, what I've learned through these years, so Green Print Partners, I'm probably not gonna get this correct, but they're the contractor that state of Vermont has hired to distribute these funds. They're the ones that we worked with. They're the ones that Watershed has worked with and been granted these projects. They're the funding source, Green Print Partners. So Green Print Partners we've been hired by the state of Vermont to administer these funds. And like Andre was saying earlier, somewhere at 10 to 20% is what we would be responsible for matching. So a quick number, I mean, if it's $100,000 project, we could be on the hook for 10 to 20,000 of it. So like Andre said, it's important for us to get on this plan and apply for it sooner than later.
Mhm.
Do you
Well, just sorry.
Do you have any sense of when the official, like, program rules are gonna come out? Cause you said it wasn't quite set in stone yet, how all
The
the
phase
funding
two?
streams gonna work. Yeah,
The implementation, yeah, so the status is, so the state, so they generated an RFP, just like they did for the design phase, and I know that Greenprint, the same company, was submitting for that. So I don't know if the state has awarded that or not, but I think the first step is for them to award a contract to somebody to oversee the implementation. And so that's the first step, and however long that takes, and then for that contractor to basically, work with the state and start, they would notify us right away. So I'm guessing it's at least a couple months out at this point. But these things, they continue to trickle out. There's new information coming out all the time on these programs. So
in the full analysis between the two projects, we're looking at about almost $700,000 to do both of them. And
Right.
we're doing 10 to 20%, it ranges from $70,000 to $140,000 that the district would have to pony up, am I correct?
sounds about right. Yeah.
let's hope that that's what the funding stream looks like.
Is that
Let's hope that's what the funding stream looks like.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely like the plan of let's get at the head of the list. I was looking at the list and there's 700 of them. There's a lot of them on there. So I think the quicker we're on that list, the better.
And the other consideration is the paving of the entire parking lot, as long as you're tearing up part of it, whether or not that gets intertwined. Since you're talking about a 37-year-old parking pavement, correct?
27 year,
Right.
95 and 23,
27,
28 years, okay.
And I think that would have to be a discussion with, if you got to that stage, with the funder, there would have to be a discussion about what the state is able to pay for. It may be that they pay, they go with the portion that we estimated or whatever. And then the district picks up the other costs. Like, I'm not sure that they would pay for the whole parking lot if it didn't need to be done necessarily, but I don't think there's a strict rule on that. So that would just have to be a discussion when it comes to that point, how you would cost share on that.
It would be, better to do it as one rather than
Right,
a little bit.
And I'm looking at your plan, Jamie. It looks like we've already budgeted some for asphalt paving for Berry City anyway over the next 3 years.
Right.
I believe.
that was the plan that they're talking
Yep.
about repaving the parking lots.
Yep.
Some of that may hinge obviously on what our cost share is. for
Yeah,
this
but
particular
It's
project.
already, at least that part's already in motion.
It's-
Everyone all set?
Yep. So we don't have Spalding then.
We don't, no, I do have some information I can share after Andres is done with us. I can share what I do know.
Maybe if we could just get an update at some point when things get filed, so we kind of know what things are moving forward. That would be cool. But this is great. This is good stuff. This has been a good presentation, Andres. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, no problem. And so are we good? Can we just go ahead and proceed with the application and get that in?
We can make a formal committee recommendation to go to the board and kind of just get it.
Sure.
Is that what you need, Jamie? The board needs to vote? 'Cause I don't recall voting for Berry City, so.
Right, I think it's just that this committee, if the committee is aware of what the project is,
Yeah.
I mean, as far we know what the.
That's
permitting-
regulatory, so we have to do that, yeah.
At some point.
And this
I
is
mean,
all
maybe
being-
for formality, it goes to the board,
I
but
would-
I don't think we should hold it up with waiting for a board meeting.
I agree. I
I
agree.
think the board would more be concerned about the funding.
Yeah, I think there will, if it involves
Eventually.
the 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Once
so
we
at
get
this
the
point here,
actual
we're clear to tell Andres, let's move forward. That's my perception.
But you could have a committee vote.
I would,
Yeah, I think
I
it's
would,
not a
I
bad
would
idea.
formalize it as a vote, and then that way everything's covered. We don't have to come back and do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
If it's just a little extra, it's a little extra. So I would look for a motion to have, Watershed Consulting move forward with the permitting process.
So moved.
Second.
You got it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Andreas.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Have a good
thank you,
night.
Andres.
Yep.
You too.
very good.
So if it's okay, to go on to the high school, so DuBois and King has,
Could I interrupt for a minute? Before you leave the Barron City Elementary School, do you know the size of that parking lot where this is going to be taking place? Do you have like a print of that?
I don't have a print here.
It looks like that might represent maybe 1/5 of the parking lot.
Yeah, or maybe a little less.
I'm
Actually, I would probably say
I'm
less than that.
thinking ahead because if you're going to conjoin the two projects, paving ain't cheap, so you're gonna need to get a calculus going. And whether or not you do that over a phased-in approach.
But my gut feeling is whatever our cost share is to do this project, I don't, well, this is a couple figures out probably before we do this. And it depends on what our funding is like. You know, if we have the funds to, like we did here at the high school, we phased in 3 different years, 3 phases. So if the first phase is to do that large parking lot at the same time to do this work, then we build that into our summer construction project. You know, that funding along with whatever state funding is available. Yeah, hopefully we can do all that at the same time. Knowing that some of the other areas up along that driveway up towards the bus loop, you know, there'll be that trenching that they'll do. That's maybe on phase 2, phase 3 through the remainder, but if we do the bulk of that main faculty parking lot, same time as drainage work is done. Yes, that would be ideal.
Well, I only bring it up because we were lucky at the high school because we had a lot of diatomaceous soils here, so the pavement lasted 45, 47 years before we actually started ripping into it.
Yeah.
And we changed the driveway.
Yeah.
What's the soils like on the upper levels? Does that get into your loam and clay?
There's some clay. Yeah, we've got a fair
Which
amount
means
of
it's
clay.
not gonna last as long as what you have down here.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, our parking lots are due to be replaced, but I mean, they're not failing. So it's not like
Right.
we're, you know, it's not an emergency status where we need to pay this, you know, this summer. But it's due. It's due. So if it's a good time, I'll share what I do know about the high school
Yes,
fire
please.
project. So DuBois and King has been awarded, you know, the project through the state, through Green Print Partners. We met with the engineer a few days ago, whatever day it was there, Thursday, I think, last week. What they're proposing, and it's in your packet as well, the picture there. If you're familiar with where the gymnasium is, you know, it's kind of parallel to the road and the fence line to the football field. That green shaded area, that's a swale, just a natural grassy swale. So it continues over towards what will become eventually the baseball field. No, sorry, softball field. But in that corner area as well, they would create this grassy swale area. And will continue all the way down along the edge of the current Crimson Tide driveway. Again, a natural grassy area, something that we can maintain and we can mow. But it's designed to capture the parking lot runoff, some of the driveways, and to naturally, you know, percolate through the ground. And at some point towards the end, it would then tie into catch basins. So this is a little bit preliminary, but this is the latest they came up with. At one point, a couple of meetings ago, I shared with you what they were proposing about putting the porous asphalt in the parking lots. And we can only know it just after the numbers we just heard tonight. You know, what kind of expense the high school parking lot would, I dare say it would be more than what Berry City Elementary project is gonna be. So I think we all said, yeah, that's not gonna fly, you know, along with the maintenance it's gonna take to upkeep it. So now all of a sudden I'm ecstatic that this is what they're now coming up with. And they feel that this will satisfy the state requirements to capture this runoff water. And so let's say, you know, let's fast forward a little bit down the road, however we come up to the funding where we reorient our ball fields and move ball fields around and do all that work. This more or less naturally lined grassy swale can then be, you know, relocated, pushed over when the Crimson Tide driveway is gone. You know, that can be relocated and redone. Because it's not a major infrastructure, underground infrastructure. So it's not like we're putting something out there that, we know at some point we're gonna dig up. Yeah, we are gonna dig it up, but this is not a major infrastructure, much like, fire retention pond or underground storage or something like that. So I was pretty excited that that's what they came up with. They're also willing to come and visit us, at a facilities meeting to explain this as well. I didn't really want to bring both contractors in. I didn't want to really get overloaded, with this information tonight. And this is a little bit preliminary as far as them having a lot more details and to have a budget number thrown at it. They're not quite there yet. But the consensus tonight is we're interested in this. We feel that this is the way we want to go. I'll certainly share with them that if that's what we decide tonight, they can now pursue it and throw a number at it and give some more detail.
This is still based upon the earlier plan that we did a number of years ago, with the field alignments remaining per that last draft that was approved. Am I correct?
Yeah.
The fields would still stay where they are.
Yep.
However, you're going to be digging up some of the fields in order to do some of the work. Is that correct? Am I understanding that with the baseball or softball field?
Yeah, so there's drainage that we would build now, and then however many years down the road, we are able to reorganize these ball fields. Some of this would be interrupted and would have to be duplicated, on the further outer perimeter of the ball fields. So yes, it would be interrupted at some point, someday when we do our ball fields. That's something we can't help. It's something that would just be,
Could it be done in conjunction?
it'll become part of the project at that point. Yeah.
So this plan though, Davey, doesn't have, at one point there was talk about an underground, whatever, way out kind of on the back corner of the football field. This doesn't have that by the looks, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
so like I say, I'm ecstatic to see this instead of, that was the sand filter system.
Right.
Similar to what they proposed for Berry City, out in the middle of our ball field. So yeah, that's not gonna fly either.
We had talked at one point about having extra parking up by the second baseball diamond. So because you would get rid of the Crimson Tide Way, the old way in, and that's where the system is, there would be no more parking or travel in that area, am I correct?
Right.
That would have to all go away.
Right. Which then if you come back towards the main faculty parking lot, you can see where it's drawn in where we proposed before. We're gonna say, 25, 30 parking spots right there, because that's a piece of property that we do own. The two further adjacent properties towards Crimson Tide Drive, they actually technically jet out right out into our parking lot, just a little bit, that asphalt drive. The corner areas of their property actually spill out into our driveway. Would those owners consider, selling that to us someday? It's something we'd have to pursue, and that would give us a lot more parking.
We did talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, so we talked a meeting or two ago, Jamie, about potential of a traffic pattern change. And it sounded like that wasn't something that would happen soon, but do we anticipate that would become a reality down the road?
Well, it's been bounced around many times through the years.
Right, now'd be the time to talk about it with us, right? We wouldn't want to do it with us too. But that was kind of in conjunction if we were able to get parking and some sort of a bridge across the river to the other side, right? Yeah.
Quite a few variables there.
Right, yeah.
So does that still map the current traffic pattern coming in where the old Jackson Dairy building used to be?
Yep.
I'm trying to see where this is plotting.
This is currently our footprint. I'm not sure what you're asking.
I'm looking for where the road comes in and circles around the building. So this is still the road. Yep.
I'm getting lost too with it all in dark gray.
Yeah, I had to draw the building in.
So in terms of like the timeline that it's spelled out, where did they give you some input on where they think they are in terms of the design process and the timeline and all those things? Because again, I think that if, it makes sense for us to get in get into the line early for all this money, boy, how are we with the timeline with this one?
Well, so where we were in April, then they said they could meet in our next facilities meeting in May. If I, tomorrow, if I call them and say, hey, look, committee was interested and excited on what you're proposing. If you want to move, put this on the fast track and get numbers put to this and get more detail to it where you're ready now to start applying this permit to the state. I
So
think
this
they're-
doesn't have a retention pond. This doesn't have an in-ground sand filter. This is all essentially done kind of like in the surface in the existing, underground water stuff.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And what we learned when we did the light pole out on the football field, or I should say Pendle Field, Giuliano, Paul, I mean, you guys remember this too, the material that they found when they bore those holes, is very good sandy material. It
Yeah.
drains very, very
It's
well.
totally tied connection.
Yeah, drains very well, so we should fare well when they design and build this soil system. But other than that, I mean, if they do find some material that they have to pull out of there, I mean, it's stone, it's sand, it's not super high tech.
Well, if you want to tie into that $20 million grant monies that's sitting out there,
Need to get
that's gonna be
going.
short-lived like everything else.
Mhm.
You might as well move on that too.
Yeah.
Why wait?
Right.
If you're gonna get bad news, you'll get bad news sooner, that's all.
It just seems too easy, Jamie. It just seems way too easy. I mean, because they came up with this incredibly extravagant plan the first time around, and then we said no, and then they shifted to something that looks just too good to be true.
Well, some of it, and I don't mean any disrespect to them, but sometimes I think they like to gussy it up. They like to go with those fancy, the fancy projects, the testing ground projects. That's just my gut. Right? Yeah, I know. It's like it's a little too good to be true. But when I called them back, and first of all, because I know they spent a lot of time on it, I said, I apologize for the amount of time you spent on this, but I mean, they're getting paid to do it. So, but I just felt the need to say, I'm sorry you put all this effort into it because they were really trying to push it. But the facilities committee, they couldn't support it. They weren't in support of it and they gave them a host of reasons why. So, okay, says, well, that's why we're here and that's what we're supposed to do. And, said, go back to something you can do out in the field, some way to filter out in the fields. I don't know, that's what they come up with.
Where does the water ultimately go?
Gotta go to I mean, this is where I was thinking, like, it's
Go down to which river? I mean,
it's gonna go down it's gonna go down the creek there.
Joe Branch or
Joe Branch.
Yeah,
That's
the
not
Jail
fine.
Branch. And I mean,
Time
that's
to
what I
the
was thinking, like, why, like, it makes sense to be why it's simple. It's kind of annoying they went so extravagant in the first place,
Right.
because if there's gonna be water issues, the Jail Branch is gonna flood.
Uh-huh.
That's where all the water, and where Berrytown and Berry City are different, they're not immediately going into basically almost level with a water, or running water source. I mean, there's water sources near them, but not like this.
Yeah, a number of years ago, Ben, there was a bank and stabilization that was done for the entire riverbank down there, and stone was brought in.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't dredge the river, but the tables were coming up, so
Yeah.
therefore, this table, that was just before Irene, because Irene came lapping up to it. And it didn't flood this way, because the entire gymnasium, or 2/3 of it, is in the floodplain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a great test.
So, yeah,
That's why I asked about where the water was gonna
for
go.
this, it just makes sense to me that it could be simple. It's almost just making sure, if the soil is what you say it is, just drain it right in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't need holding tanks.
Right,
because-
right.
So
because
it's just
clay
flowing,
sucks
it's-
for that.
As it's flowing through that swale, it's obviously
Yeah.
draining, percolating through the ground. And whatever makes it toward the end, it's gonna end up, in the Jail Branch.
Joe Branch are in the municipal system, so, yeah.
So if what I'm hearing from the crew tonight, I'll reach out to Dubois and King and tell them, yeah, consensus was, we're excited, we're interested in this plan. Let's move forward and see what they can present to us in May.
Or maybe they have a better one. Let's find out a better one.
Yeah.
What's option number 3?
Yeah. I don't know if I want to push that one.
So are you gonna motion that for consensus? or-
Yeah, that's what I was.
I don't think we have to. I think it's just something for Jamie to do. we'll review it next month.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, if we wanted to try to push it along to get it in the queue for the permit process, or see a final plan with financial figures next month.
So I'll invite them to next month's meeting. They can give us the budget number and then update it, details about how it worked and why and all that good stuff.
Do you know if anything's been done here, Jamie, in terms of the, what was he talking about? The permitting? For permitting, but the first phase of the permitting was the notice of intent. Is that, if that's been done on the initial application? Have they gone that far yet or not yet?
I want to say yes.
I would think that must be done, right? Because that triggers the 18 months, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so. So, we're
So it's in process.
we're well along. Yeah.
Probably triggers their work to start.
Yep. Cool.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to old business 6.1, the EDI update with monthly financials.
So as far as the update goes, the teachers moved back into their classrooms. I don't know what day this is.
Last Friday.
Last week, yeah, last Friday. I've been hearing rave reviews. They're all excited about the lights, just the new LED lights, how they can dim them. It's a better color. And then I think some of the teaching folks have forgotten, maybe some of them just have missed this part. I was in a couple of the classrooms as we were moving furniture in and teachers were getting set back up. And I was having a conversation with some of them and I said, eventually as equipment moves along here in the coming months to be, rooftop equipment gets set in, all that, the new heating ventilation system gets put into place, univents are gonna go away. You've got these heating panels that are up in the ceiling. And then in the warmer months, you're gonna have air conditioning. And these teachers' eyes are like silver dollars, like,
Yeah.
what did you
That
just,
never would have crossed our mind, a
Yeah.
few years ago.
they said, what did you just say? I said, technically they're calling it dehumidification, but it's air conditioning. You're gonna have air conditioning in the warmer months. And they were just like kids with a new toy. I was like, oh, okay. So I felt good. I could share some good information. So anyhow, the movement went very well. I'm very impressed with the teaching staff and how they pitched in with helping to move furniture and set up. They've been troopers with doing that. I was afraid that some of the momentum and steam was going to get lost as we go, and we're going to have trouble making this happen. But no, they've been fantastic.
What's happening with the univents? Are you saving them for spares?
We're going to save a few just because we can't save them all, but we're going to save a few of them for parts and pieces.
They're not very old.
I know. We're going to try and sell them. We're going to sell them. We're going to try and sell the other ones. I've got contacts, I can reach out to the statewide facility directors. Look, this is what we have. Our pneumatic controls contractor that's been here ever since the school's been here, he's got contacts. I mean, that's what he does. He can reach, he told me the other day when he was here, talking about one of the schools, he said, yeah, these schools will probably buy these off of you. Certainly, we're going to lose some money because, yeah, they're not all that old, but if we knew then, or, if we knew COVID was coming and we're going to have millions of dollars of money coming to do this, we would have said, all right, let's hold off on doing this, but I don't own a crystal ball, so we just didn't know.
All I know is it was a struggle to get them in, and you mentioned you're gonna tear them out.
I know.
Frank will be able to.
Yeah, me too.
Took us, what, 5 years, 6 years to get them in?
No, this is not gonna go to the junkyard.
Right. I mean, we'll get some money back. And we're not, we're also not removing the entire building. We're removing, these 4 hallways, and we still have right, the other half of the building still has them. So we're gonna save some, keep some, but as much space as we can find to store some, we will.
Cause our luck, you get rid of them, the other ones start breaking down, no spares. I won't be happy at all.
We'll save as many as we can. As far as monthly financials, I mean, that's something that I would have to have Lisa share with you. They're in a bit of a time crunch pickle here these last few weeks, and going forward, they're getting training on this new financial system. So they're right out straight with getting training on how to do that on top of everything else they need to do. So I haven't pushed Lisa for any type of reporting, but other than to say that both Lisa and I see that the monthly application for payments And they have a grid on there and it shows the percentage, so anything from sheetrocking, painting, mechanical work, electrical work, plumbing work is all broken down. Here's the starting dollar amount that we start with, here's percentage that's been completed to date. So here's how much we paid, here's what's left to pay, here's the contingency amounts. So each payment of application, we watch those numbers. So I mean,
That's a report, Jamie? That you guys kind of
it's a
review?
monthly application for payment. I guess you could call it a report, but that's what they call application for payment.
Yeah, maybe if Lisa's not available, maybe if we just take a peek at that.
So when I thought about trying to do that today, and then coincidentally she's out today, of just getting a copy of the latest monthly application for payment to give you an idea. Here's where the numbers are, here's where we're going. So I can certainly get you that for next month. That's easy enough to do.
Any other questions?
So as far as you know, Jamie, on target financially, nothing overspent other than our initial asbestos stuff, but.
Yeah, we have not dipped in any kind of contingencies. We have not found anything above and beyond what was proposed. So so just to share with you, something that was a little, I don't want to say overlooked or not thought about. On the top floor hallway where some of the trunk lines of the ductwork come from the roof, come through the hallway of that floor and then trickle down, downstream. So there's some bump outs in the hallways and it's steel studded and sheetrock. But once they started getting to the point where they're ready to sheetrock, if you're gonna just put up standard sheetrock, the kids are gonna kick holes in there, they're gonna punch it, it's gonna get damaged. What can we do? And what can we do so it doesn't cost us any more money? How can we fix this? Well, what can we do? What are our options? So they end up going with the high impact sheetrock, just like what we did at the C building. It's a 5/8. They almost have to use like a saw to cut the sheetrock. It's rugged stuff. So that's what they end up using on the bump outs versus just standard sheetrock.
Is that the polymer applied drywall?
Okay, yeah, I don't know exactly what's in it, but other than it's like just some rugged stuff. So that's what they end up using on the bump outs. And if they had to dig into their contingency fee to do it, that was on them, wasn't on us.
Nice. And then just so there was some delay with the sprinkler in that section, right? So they're gonna have to come back and do that. But I think you had said last time that the plan is to do that during the summer, so it doesn't interrupt the kids, right? Is it, so that they obviously got to reopen things to do that work. Is there an impact to us or are they gonna absorb that?
It's on them.
They're gonna absorb that, okay.
And they're actually just completing the asbestos abatement in the math hall right now. So when they get in there to start constructing, I'm gonna have to ask this question when we meet next week. Is the sprinkler contractor then gonna start roughing in that hallway, that section?
Yeah.
But at some point in the summer, they'll have to kind of double up a bit.
Get caught up
on the
there,
top
yeah.
floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
When will the sprinkler system be totally complete?
Well, if I mentally go through my checklist, so right now they're doing the math hall. That's projected to be done end of June. This summer, they're going to do the top English hall, which will be completed by the start of the school year in the fall. And then in the fall, they're doing the science hallway, which will be completed late fall, early winter. Again, I'm just winging this off the top of my head. I think at that point, that's when they're nearing completion of the project. So during all of that process and a lot this summer is when the bulk of a lot of sprinkler work is going to happen. The lighting throughout the building is going to happen. And then some of those vacation breaks, the winter break, the February break.
So the entire facilities will be 100% sprinkled by the time they're done.
Correct. Right.
Well, but not the,
With the exception of this, no,
whatever we call it.
100% of the building will be sprinkled. The stage ceiling will not have the asbestos ceiling tile abated. That was the only,
There's sprinklers in there?
the stage is sprinkled right now,
Okay.
but the auditorium itself is not sprinkled.
Okay, the stages, okay.
The stages, when we did all the heavy trade shops that one summer with sprinkling, they went as far as the stage and that's where it stopped. And stopped just short the lobby outside of the stage entrance into the stage area. That's where the sprinkler system stopped.
So the bump outs won't continue through the math hallway. They'll be tucked into the ceiling and then the venting goes.
Correct. Yeah, so they'll come in the ceiling, then math hallway and
And then the
Brain
same with
softened all
the
the
English,
classrooms.
there'll be bump outs in the English hallway, but not in the science.
Correct.
So as I was looking at the upstairs, it looked really nice coming down through the hallway. In general, the new tile that's going up in place is at a 6 inches lower than the previous tile. And that's mostly for the ductwork and other things that are coming through that's going in the lower deck. So it's saving you some energy, so I had no complaints about it.
Sure.
And the same sort of lighting that's going in the classrooms is going to continue throughout the building.
There may be a little variances in some places, like, the cafeteria or kitchen. Obviously, that's all surface mount, so it'll be a same but different, a different style, but LED. And where the classrooms are all recessed, all recessed fixtures. Some places like cafeteria, kitchen ceiling is a hard plaster ceiling, so obviously it'll be a surface mount fixture.
Well, I went in one of the classrooms tonight. I went on and played with the switches. I almost needed a training manual. We had to get the dimmers to work up and down there. There was a delayed action to it. I didn't like.
Yeah, with the LEDs, yeah. It's better than
Yeah.
on and off.
Now as well,
I would rather have it.
as a reminder, so the classroom light fixtures, the light fixtures that are closer to the outside of windows, it's that light harvesting function. So all the lighting will be, the same amount of, well, it'd be the amount of brightness to illuminate the room equally. But the windows, the light fixtures near the windows might run at 30%. The fixtures further into the room might have to run at 60%. Overall, it'll be the same illumination, same lumens.
Depending
So
on
there's
the
energy
area.
savings there as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Jamie, can I ask a question?
Yep.
You just made me think when you said cafeteria lights. Can we defer some expense on the project and use food service funds for the kitchen? We're struggling to find a place to spend that money. Can we defer and use
Oh, why not?
cafeteria funds for the cafeteria portion, some of it? And then maybe use some of that other money for things that we may not have done or pulled out, you know what I'm saying?
You're talking about that 900,000.
Yep.
Well, the cafeteria lighting has already been replaced. Cafeteria lighting is already LED. When I say cafeteria, I'm referring just to the kitchen itself.
Okay.
So there's not a lot of lighting in there.
No, but I mean, you're right. I mean, we seem to be, that fund just continues to go up because we're struggling to find places to spend it. And I think it's easier to find places to use ESSER money than it is food service money. You know what I'm saying? So could we swap those funds out and use food service money and use ESSER money for a teacher or a whatever, right? Supplies or,
That's a good idea.
you know what I mean?
Let me ask Lisa that question. Food service funds for lighting.
For whatever,
In the
anything that's being
cafeteria.
done in the cafeteria or the food service area, because
It has to be related to.
it has to be related to food service, and we're struggling to find ways to spend that money, so if we got an opportunity, we should do it.
Is there
Well,
any
makes it-
other work getting done in the cafeteria other than the lighting?
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. So, actually the loading dock, the walk-in freezer is actually getting replaced with food service monies.
Yep.
And that's, what is that at? Somewhere in upper 20-something thousands to replace that cooler. So if that helps make you feel a little better, we're spending a little bit there.
Yeah.
But
But
if
it's,
you come up with another 200,000, you got a deal.
so I'll ask Lisa that question.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though. It makes sense.
Yeah, that, because that ESSER money, we can use in a lot of places that we could use.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You can target that for the 2024.
Exactly. Yeah, use it to fund something that we need.
Is that it? Okay, just point two, 5-year plan. It's the progress report on that, Jim.
Well, not really much has really changed on there. I was asked to include the playgrounds as part of that plan, so, that's something I have put on my own 5-year plan chart. I need to find a way, how do I get back on our website, to update it there, with our communications director's not here. I have to find a way how to get on. I need some help finding out how to get on and update that. So it's a trivial thing. It's just something I just need to do. So there's not much to update you there.
I tend to check the thought. and I looked at your 5-year plan of what you have, and if that was the only money that we're gonna spend, you're in trouble. Because it doesn't seem to have a very large amount of funds considering the projects we're doing. Is there any way of enhancing that 5-year plan? I think at one board meeting, we had given you an example. Was it Washington Central that?
Yeah,
that had-
shared a couple plans.
Yeah, that was, and there was another one that I dug up. Well, what it does, it helps to trigger where you're gonna have actual expenses, so you can project ahead. It's much more detailed. I didn't know if you needed some help from other sources to help construct that type of plan, but it made perfect sense the way they did it.
Yeah, that's something where I spoke with Lisa, Lisa Pearl, our business manager, about that, and that's something where, she and I, some help from her to sit down and craft a more elaborate plan. Just, again, they're right out straight right now, learning this new financial system.
Yeah, I understand that, but in talking with some of the people that worked on their plans, there's quite a few people that worked on constructing it. It wasn't a 1 or 2 person
Right.
document.
Right.
Obviously, it was some real work that went into it. It's an excellent document. We ought to really glom onto that because I think will make everybody's job easy, including your own.
Which, right, yeah, that was a committee that created those plans.
Yes, and there's nothing wrong with putting a committee together to come up with something that's constructive.
Right.
I mean, it's a flight plan to me. I mean, it just tells you everything you need to know about what you're doing.
Yeah, and I just say that just because it's gonna take some time to create that. Right now, everyone's struggling right now with time.
But the only reason why I brought it up is because they kind of have the blueprint already. It's just a matter of how we just aid to it. Yeah.
Right.
How we shape our stuff, because it's very similar. I mean, all schools are all schools.
Yeah.
And if you have something that's detailed, when you come to meetings like this, you know what to expect. And then it's just a matter of getting reporting where those finances are coming from, how they're being utilized, and what the progress reports of the project. That's what that plan is.
Right. Oh, yeah, I don't deny the benefits of it. Just,
Okay.
we've got to find some time to start making it happen. Just time's not there quite yet.
I'm retired.
There's your
I've heard
There's
that
a
volunteer.
committee of one right there.
There's your volunteer.
Sort of retired, but I'm getting there. Word was retarded, but
No, I think it's nice to have a goal for it. Like we've talked about it a lot, but I think it's nice to have a goal for it. It's like we've talked. I think it's a great document for scheduling and planning and budgeting. And, it's nice to see. And even like we talked a little last week about, some of the capital assets. It'd be nice to see those on there. So anybody that has questions could look at there and go, well, there's the next 5 or 6 years of big projects, of big capital expenses and all those things. I think it's very useful for everybody.
One, I like that label. It's a goal and we'll get there.
well, but also it puts your capital resources for your capital projects, ties them both together.
Yep.
If you have $2.4 million in capital improvements and so forth, and you're looking at what's coming, whether it be like the stormwater, perfect example. There's a $700,000 project in which we may have to, depending on whether or not we qualify, and we don't know what the high school is yet. Having $70,000 or $140,000 tagged for that particular purpose, I think would alleviate some future problems as to, okay, how are we going to do this?
It's on the
We're
radar.
not waiting to the last minute.
It's on the radar right now.
And to our credit, through the years, I mean, we have not been caught with our pants down on various projects that have come up. We budgeted for them, we've had those in our plan. We've been very diligent about putting money into our capital monies to do these projects. So this will just make it that much better. It'll enhance it. So yeah, I agree. I don't dispute the benefits of it. Again, it needs some time. We've got to find some time to get there. We will.
Well, I'm saying that.
All right, 6.3, the visionary list. Is that,
So we had an admin meeting a couple weeks ago, and I shared with them the quest for each building to share this list. And I've got to actually sit down. They have standing meetings every week, and I've got to ask Chris to have them put me on that meeting to then sit down with administrators of each building to start working on what's their wish list, what's their needs, what's their wants. Again, being cognizant of they're struggling just to staff, classrooms. The administrators, principals are subbing for teachers, they're struggling. So for me to try to push them to create this, they're aware of it. It's a work in progress. They haven't ignored it, they haven't forgotten it. It's a work in progress.
I think we gotta remember too, it's not just visionary lists, it's to-do lists. So I think, certainly, I bet the maintenance folks, the leads in each building could probably rattle off 20 items in each building just like that. So that might be the way to start it, because I bet there's some duplication of what they're talking about, and what the administrators want. So, maybe just get a quick list from those guys, because that might give us a top 20 list of, things in each building. I'm sure those guys know it.
How,
They're the boots on the ground.
how minor to major do you want to start
I
at?
think it should, I personally think it should be anything, but I think to get it going, probably some sort of fresh.
Stuff.
I think about $5,000, and maybe classic start.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna know what are the chronic issues, and, I think, I think it's hard to quantify it, but something like that.
So that one's easy. That one, that's a quick.
That gives us a start.
That's like, my crew that I sit and work
Yep.
with and stuff. So.
Yep.
And they're gonna also know the gripes of the teachers
Yeah.
and that the administrators might not be hearing as well, because
Yep.
teachers may not go to the higher ups in the school. They may just go to maintenance and mention
Yep.
mention
But
things.
that's like a work ticket thing. Is that how it's done? A work ticket?
So what we've done through the years is the best way for teachers to communicate quickly is emails. They shoot them an email. They've done the Zendesk things before, but that has to filter through, the IT department, and they've got to find to send them out. And there's a cost involved in all that. So we've always said to the teachers, if it's immediate emergency concern, call the front office, they'll call the guys on the radio. But if it's a need, it's a want, is when you've got some time, can you install a pencil sharpener, whatever it is, send an email. And I tell a lot of folks too, if you feel the need, include me in on it as well, especially if it's a bigger ticket item. So if it's a budget, type thing, then I get involved more.
I bet you there's some visionary stuff kicking around throughout the schools that just aren't hitting other folks either.
Right, that's why it's nice to get everybody to weigh in. if you
Yeah,
can.
scuttlebutt.
So that's a good place to start, because then we can get something on paper,
Yep. I can have that for next month. I do something for next month.
And Luke did tell us he had a list, but he's not here tonight, so, but Luke said he'd already come up with a list, so next time we Shanghai Luke at a meeting, we can get him to copy those stuff.
Ironically, that 5 plan Washington had the visionary aspects.
Oh, it did? Yep, okay, yep, yes, it did.
Okay. Anything for other business?
I have a quick question for Jamie, more of a radar question for me. Are there any other potential problems, PCB, anything like that would be an extreme expense to the scooters? I'm thinking, for example, we had the asbestos ceiling tiles. That was a $457,000. We didn't see that one.
So I've got some updates for you, speaking, and the PCB is one of them.
What would that look like? And are there any match monies if we do have that kind of problem? Because that was the reason why they disintegrated the entire high school up in Chittenden County.
So is this an okay time for me to start giving you an update on the latest, but all right, so PCBs, I just recently learned last week, the state of Vermont has kind of put a pause on the PCB testing in our schools. There was a story in, forgetting the name of one of the papers there, but anyhow, the state has had a habit through the years of, instituting new programs and kind of, getting ahead of themselves, starting to realize the PCB level, they set the standard much lower than what the national average is, or whatever the national requirement is. The state of Vermont has taken upon themselves to lower that level. And in doing so, they're starting to find more and more schools all of a sudden, with the amount that they tested, have higher levels, have the levels high enough where, okay, we got to start doing something pretty serious here. So they put a pause on the testing to figure out what direction they want to go in. The finding is have we set that standard, I would say too high, too low, that threshold, have we made it too low, that too many buildings now are going to come in at this level where it's an actual item. So there's been a pause on the testing of the schools for them to figure out where we're going with this. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait right now. I don't dare say to you, I have no idea what kind of cost we're looking at yet. I just don't know. What I do know, what we have done at Berry Town and Spalding, Berry City is not an asbestos issue and not a PCB issue, thank God. But what things we have done in our schools is, at one point, we replaced all of our lighting in our schools from the magnetic ballast to electronic ballast. That has removed a lot of the sorts of PCBs in the past. We've replaced the windows in our building, which a lot of that is caulking, is in the caulking. We've replaced all of our windows in high school, so hopeful that that caulking that was there has been removed and no longer there. I'm hopeful, I don't know that, but I'm hopeful that it got removed. Then also they say sometimes it's in flooring. Well, our flooring already has asbestos in it and we're mitigating it as we go. And we're very close to having that removed from the high school. Berry Town has replaced many of the windows in that building. I dare say maybe 60–70% of the windows have been replaced in that building, but we still have a lot of old windows there. So there may be PCBs in that caulking. Same thing there. We have asbestos floor tiles there. We're removing them, replacing them, half a dozen or so classrooms every year. So we're gaining there. Just don't know yet.
My primary concern is that every time an agency changes the standard, there's an exponential expense that just seems to be born within the district. You saw that we now change the standard. I think that's what got us to the ceiling tile. They changed the standard for the amount of particles of asbestos in those ceiling tiles. The irony is that those ceiling tiles have been put up, taken down so many different times for so many projects. I was thinking of the Camp Lejeune thing. We sent out notifications and everybody got exposed over the last 50 years. That's not going to happen. But nonetheless, it's enough to say we got to replace it. I don't know how many times you reach a $457,000 instant thing that is in one building. We've got multiple buildings and they have tiles and some of them don't have that problem because they're a little newer. But we have two buildings that were of the same age. And
well, so maybe to get you up to speed a little bit, Paul, that I shared with the committee in the last meeting or so. So Berry Town has very small amounts of asbestos ceiling tiles, but they've been identified. And we have a plan. And actually the last week or two of June, after the kids are out of the building and staff's out, we're mitigating those asbestos ceiling tiles. They're primarily in bathrooms. It's a $9,000 some odd project, which we have in the budget this year. So it could be bought and paid for and done by the end of this fiscal year. And then we won't have, the only remaining asbestos in the ceiling is in the blue that is in the band and chorus room. So as long as those ceiling tiles stay up there, we're not going to remove them. It's there and it's safe as long as you don't disturb it. Other than that, what we do have it for asbestos ceiling tiles will be removed this year.
The point of my discussion here is that there are so many different things. I think if I eat too many filet mignon steaks, I'm going to get cancer or whatever. There's always something that there's a standard that's being changed, and at some point, it's a question of being able to pay for whatever that is. And with the asbestos abatement that we did in this high school for years, that was very, very expensive. It continues to be. And I don't know how the state treasury feels about this, whether or not there's monies to help abate that. We haven't had a construction aid program in almost 30 years now, where we used to have that and you can apply for it. So right now we're trying to find different ways of funding these things. My question to you was, what is on the radar potentially beyond PCBs that might enter into the loop? Lead was another concern. We did lead testing,
Right.
asbestos testing, and I don't know whatever else is out there.
Yeah, we've been down that road now with the less testing of the water. What the state found out on that was, again, they got ahead of themselves a little bit before they did enough studies before they started throwing a bunch of money out at schools. It didn't really matter if it's a 2023 water faucet or a 1963 water faucet. It's the amount of how often it gets used, because the plumbing throughout the building, you know, all the fittings, whatnot, lead fittings here and there, that was the way it was.
Yeah.
So we found it wasn't a matter of how old the fixture was, is how often that fixture was used. If we went to some old fixtures that were original 1963 faucets in this building, the numbers came back fine, because it's a faucet that got used every day.
Mhm.
But a newer faucet that sat there idle and got used, you know, once in a while, those numbers came in high. So it wasn't a matter of how old the fixtures were, it was a matter of how often you used it. State then learned is, you know, flushing is the flushing program they have to institute in the buildings. It's not a matter of throwing money at fixtures, because that's what happened. You know, when John Pandolfo was superintendent at the time, you know, he and I went to whatever the Senate Ed Committee, and we testified, and as I told him, it's not a matter of the fixtures, it's a matter of the practice of how you use them. You know, and they did, at that point, they threw a lot of money out to all these schools and places to replace those fixtures. It was money ill spent.
As I remember, it came back, water conservation got thrown out the door because you had to keep moving water through these
Well,
systems.
if it absorbs the lead, it's moving, it won't.
Exactly. Exactly.
So if you were to ask me my own personal crystal ball, what out there we think that is out there, I mean, the PCBs is the big question mark right now. You know, we just don't know. We know what we have for asbestos, and we're dealing with it as far as floor tiles go. We know about the ceilings, but that will have been done after this school year. We know what little bit Berry Town has, and we're dealing with it this school year. We do know Berry Town and Spalding does not have lead in our paint. That's been tested. So we don't have lead in our paint. So that was huge.
So we haven't completed our PCB testing.
We have not. We're waiting for the state.
Have it started.
They've done a bunch of schools, and they've done enough now to start realizing, okay, state of Vermont is sitting back thinking, okay, I think we might have made this threshold too low. Because now we're trying to find out already with just the amount of schools we tested. A lot of schools are testing too high. So now they're, oh, pull the reins back. Let's regroup here. So yeah, and before that happened, we were scheduled for sometime this coming fall, but that's now, yeah, I don't know. I just don't know yet.
See, this was a concern to me because Burlington got hit with that pretty hard, and it's made their entire high school go bye-bye.
Yeah.
And now that there was a transfer of funds to help them with the new school, replace that, there was these large blocks of money, that was $16 million that went out, that's going out, what was in discussion last week. And I brought that up at the board meeting too, because those are important funds to us all. And if, I didn't know if there was going to be any money coming from the state for these kinds of programs. And my doubt is they're pretty strong in that.
Well, we were told back before they put the pause on this, I mean, the state was paying for the testing to happen. So the testing wasn't going to be a cost to us, at least directly. But whatever they found, then it was a matter of, okay, well,
How do you fix it?
yeah, how do you fix it, and to what extent, you know, to what extent was it, you know, it was to determine if it was immediate action or something you had to have a plan for. So yeah, that's a hurry up and wait situation. So some other updates for you. So here's some good news things. Efficiency Vermont has this pilot program called T-LED, T-LED. So at Berry City and Berry Town, we're not in a position yet to do like what we're doing here at the high school. We're replacing all of our fixtures with LED fixtures. But what Efficiency Vermont is doing in this pilot program, because the state of Vermont has determined that fluorescent lighting is going to be phased out and you can no longer buy fluorescent lamps and ballasts and whatnot to repair your fixtures. They're finding a way, okay, well then how do we say to the public, we're going to help you with that. If you have, I think the threshold was if you have 2,000 lamps or more of fluorescent bulbs, which would very easily qualify in our two schools, they will pay 100% replacement of one fluorescent lamp for a new LED lamp. We have to provide the labor to literally change out the lamps. And we don't need an electrician to change out lamps. Anybody can change out a lamp. We are responsible for recycling the bulbs. You know, so we're probably, you know, hundreds or $1,000 or something dollars to pay for the bulbs. So to put some real numbers to that, at Berry City Elementary School, they went through and counted all the lamps. $61,012 worth of free LED lamps that Free Vermont is gonna foot the bill. At Berry Town School, it's $48,216 worth of free lamps. So that's, it's well over, it's $109,000 free money.
Better than now for here. It's too late to sneak some in for here.
Yeah, but they had to come and actually count the lamps. So what that means for us is that
Never on time.
No,
we're still gonna have the same fixtures at Berry City and Berry Town, but the lamps will be LED, which is more efficient. So we're gonna be saving on electrical usage there. And then it buys us time down the road if we decide, okay, well, yeah, Berry City, Berry Town, it would be nice to have the same type of lighting that the high school has that you can dim, light harvesting and all that. Well, that's something we can work on down the road. And we now have time to work on that. But in the meantime, we're gonna get free LED bulbs, which will then save us electrical usage. So this is
Well,
win-win.
why can't you have the same holders and just change out your switches if you have an LED bulb? Don't mean you can change out your switches, which deals with the amount of ohms going through the wire to power those.
So the switches that are here at the high school, those are actually wireless. These switches here are wireless. They're transmitting the signal to the fixture. So that's, I mean, they had to rewire. They had to rewire all the fixtures here, or they will have rewired the fixtures in the building to do this.
See, I've changed all the LED lighting in I went to LED lighting for my entire house. And anything that involved dimmers and so forth had to have special dimmers so they would work with LED lights. You just couldn't stay with your regular dimmer switches and stuff like that. The switches were expensive. I won't deny that, but at $30 a pop, it was quite a bit. But
There's rebates for
nonetheless,
those too.
it's a hell of a lot cheaper than trying to replace the entire system just so you can have a remote.
Well, what Berry City and Berry Town doesn't have the capability of with existing fixtures is those ballasts aren't dimmable. So you can't dim those ballasts. If you had a dimmable switch, those ballasts aren't rated to be dimmed. So that's, again, it's the fixture itself.
It's not about
We just don't have the means. So, Berry City, Berry Town won't be the equivalent of what we'll have here at the high school.
So if they don't have a ballast unit that might retrofit those housings, because I mean, you're talking about taking out the whole housing and putting in a different light so it has no ballast situation, am I right?
So what Berry Town and Berry City is gonna have, these bulbs that they're giving us, they're a universal lamp, meaning it can accept the existing ballast that's in there now, and or you can take the ballast out, rewire it a bit and direct wire the pin sockets to those LED lamps. So this lamp is a universal lamp. So we have the luxury of, again, custodian, maintenance guy, they can go and change the bulbs, take the bulb out, put LED in, you're done. As time goes on and those ballasts start to fail, then our district electrician will then go in, take out that ballast that has failed, redo some of the wiring, direct wire to those pin sockets, and you're back in action again with those LED lamps. So this is buying us a lot of time that we're gonna have LED lighting in our buildings. And not have to hire somebody to go through it and rewire every single fixture to be then direct wired. Eventually, we're gonna have to get there. But these LED lamps, wherever they are, tens of thousands of hours are supposed to last. So it's not the end all solving it, but it's a good, good fix for the time being. And it's not gonna cost us other than our time.
And the recycling of the lamps.
So we're responsible for recycling the lamps. And I can't put exact figure to it, but I can figure that out. It's so many cents a foot for a bulb, whatever thousands of bulbs that we have. If I was gonna wing it, somewhere in $100 to $1,000 per school to recycle the bulbs. So they're pennies compared to what they're giving us for the bulbs. So that was a nice plus. We've applied for this. We're anticipating we're going to get. Haven't been confirmed yet that we've been accepted to get this. But working with Efficiency Vermont and our local electrical distributor up in Berlin. So just we're waiting word on that.
Who's the distributor?
Twin State Electric.
Twin State.
CED. This Thursday, April 6th, the bids are due for the roofing project at Berry City Elementary. The areas that's being looked at is the remaining flat roofs, as well as two of the hip shingled roofs. And the reason we're starting to tie those in, because those are in areas where we're doing the flat roof. And it's a good time now to transition the rubber roof into the asphalt shingles. Our focus before was we had so much of the flat roofs, we want to focus on the flat roofs first. But now that we're towards the tail end of the flat roofs, it's good timing now to do two of the four hip roofs that we have, to tie that rubber membrane into the asphalt shingles as well.
Now, you had a previous estimate that was thrown in the plan in about 300,000. And when we were working on the budget numbers, we threw 350 in there, figuring things were changing. Is the 350 still gonna cover it?
That was a budget number. That was an educated guesstimate budget number.
The 300 was, but the 350 was something that the finance committee upped.
Well, I mean, we're gonna do as much roofing as we can afford to, as well as the flat roofs and the two hip shingle roofs. We're also asking for them to bid the barrel roof as well. I'm pretty safe to say we're not gonna be able to afford to do the barrel roof as well. But there's the cafeteria length of the barrel roof, which is the longer barrel roof, and then the library barrel roof is the shorter part. If we can afford to do one or the other, I mean, we're gonna do as much as we can. But I've asked them to bid that separately, to break it out. Because we know we're pretty confident to know if we can do all the flat roofs and the shingle roofs. And if we can do some of the barrel roof, then we will. We'll do as much as we
The
can.
barrel roof in the cafeteria, do you think that would qualify for the food service?
As far as I'm concerned, it does. That's how you write it up.
Oh,
So those bids are due this Friday.
You don't want water in your food.
That's right.
well, if you're making soup, you need to put some water in it.
Yeah.
All right,
but not
any
that-
items for future agenda?
Yes, sir. So the kind of the standing items, the EEI update.
Yep.
5-year plan on the building to-do list. We talked about doing those all again.
Yep.
Du Bois and King Stormwater.
Yep.
EEI finance of Jamie's gonna bring something. I forgot what it was, but something, so maybe that one.
Copy of the application.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. Could we also add an update on the granite items to go out back here? A couple items for the parking lot, possibly. We had talked a few months ago, Jamie, in probably wasn't even a few months ago, of potentially seeing if we could find someone that is an athletic facilities consultant to come and chat with us about that, to kind of get some fresh ideas and updated information, since it's been years. Is that something we could put it on the parking lot? But I think that's something, we should be talking about. I think that's
Well,
important.
it's kind of being talked about right now. It's an okay time to talk about it. So Eddie Roos has applied for some of the city of Barry ARPA,
money.
whatever the ARPA monies are. And it sounds like it's in round 2 that they want more information as part of this application. So the SHS Foundation, Eddie Roos had met last week to start talking about that, and where, do we want to apply for this? And if we do, what would the money be used for? I shared my thoughts that from what I'm hearing, it's $40,000. I don't know how far $40,000 is going to go to design something enough to show you what it's going to take to construct a project like that. For an engineer to sit down and say, okay, well, here's all the drainage type of work that's going to happen. Here's the earthwork. Here's what it's going to construct, to construct the baseball field, the diamond field, all that. Here's all the areas you got to do. They can throw budget numbers at all that. To get us that shopping list. I don't know if $40,000 is enough to do that.
Right.
I'm not going to dare say no, it's not. But
Well, and that's why, kind of be nice if we could even just conceptually get somebody that's kind of in the biz. Just come
Yeah.
talk to us. Maybe
Right.
there's not even a plan in place, but just come talk to us. It's been several years since we've, and now that's what's changed in it. What are the trends? Maybe there's new products that make it easier. Just be nice to do some information gathering from somebody in the biz,
So the money that Eddie Roos on our behalf that he's applying for, those kind of monies would help us to
Once we
hire
get the
somebody
designing,
to do
yeah.
some of what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's-
I'm just thinking informational at this point, not necessarily designing, but informational, to have somebody come in and give us some fresh information on it. And then if that happens, then we would have some information in our pocket to say, okay, well, this might be the path to go.
But I think, I dare say, I think it's gonna cost you some money to have someone do that though.
Yeah.
To give you some of those ideas. It's gonna take them some time.
And my
So anyway,
concern
parking
is
lot
that
for that
you
one.
spend more on engineering, not that I have any problem with engineers, it's just that, when you want to do the project, you've already spent your main capital on design only.
Yep.
And then you're back at it, how many years has it been now?
I
Several.
think we're on 13.
It was 2010 when we finally designed that conceptual
Yeah.
plan.
We had Du Bois and King work on that.
Right.
Jeff and I talked about that.
If I can back up a little bit too, you mentioned the granite items.
Mhm. We
Those
can do that
benches,
next time. We can do it next time. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
so I have information on it.
Yeah, okay. And then for parking lot as well, it's funny, we talked about the lighting, because again, that's a topic that we talked about before when we did this, is maybe we should talk about the other buildings. So we should add that to the parking lot, because quite frankly, we should look at exactly what Paul's talking about. If we're gonna get a head start from Efficiency Vermont to pay for the bulbs, maybe we kick in and do what we did here, right? I mean, if a portion of that's gonna get paid for, maybe we should look at that. So that's certainly something that we should put on the parking lot and maybe talk about more.
But they're talking about exchanging bulbs.
They're talking about just
They're not
exchanging
talking
bulbs,
about
but
buying new fixtures.
no, I understand that, but we could absorb that cost ourselves, right? We could
If Efficiency Vermont
Mhm.
says you're able to.
'Cause there's
go ahead and do
other
that,
rebates, and that's what we rely
apples to
on.
apples,
Yep.
that's all I'm saying.
So anyway, the parking lot for that one. And then the last one I had, so Green Schools Initiative, Jamie, it got mentioned, from the fellow that did a presentation. Could we get some information on that? What that is, and maybe they've got someone that talks about that stuff, but I've heard that in several circles now, and it'd be nice to understand more of what that's all about.
Do you want that in the parking lot or do you want,
Well, at some point, I think, that's kind of this
It
is the
might-
stuff
it
we're
might
going
tie
down the
in.
road, so.
it might tie into the presentation.
So like,
It fits in a lot of this stuff, but it'd just be nice to have some information on what entirely is that, right?
What is Green Schools
Yeah,
Initiative?
what is it? What are their charges? What are their priorities? Is it it'd be interesting, it's a state program. Maybe someone from the state can just come and give us a presentation on that initiative.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
we might be able to, I was wondering if maybe we could get an update on the Green Print Partners or whoever wins the RFP. Because it sounds like they're in the RFP. Maybe Du Bois and King can give us some information, kind of. If more of that program is released by the time.
I have a contact person for the Green Print Partners, so I can email that person.
And see
Just to
if
say,
they
can
won.
you give me the latest, what's the latest information that you have? So I can do that.
Okay, anything else? I was thinking, since we've already talked about it, we haven't seen it, just taking a quick tour of one of the classrooms, finished classroom, and take a look at the lights, and so maybe we can start at 5:30 and do that.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. Next meeting, May 1st, 6 PM here in the library or Google Meet. And I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn is not debatable.
Just one other day.
Like that?
Yeah.
That's-
Uh,
Tells anyone.